Hey everyone, ADAC Productions here. I've gotten a lot of really lovely comments about the undercarriage shots in my recent remakes, which is really nice to see. I'm really glad people really like them. I actually had to reshoot the shot in my double header remake because the first time I filmed it I forgot to add head codes. So this second time around I thought I'd film the entire process for you guys and show you how I do it. You will discover it is not a very neat or professional technique. First I lay out where I want the tracks to go, and then I place these yellow Tommy pillars around. The middle ones are where the track goes, and then those outer ones are just to maintain a flat surface. So then when I put down this green sheet, which acts as the ground, it's all even. And then that way it's raised up so that the camera can get below the ground and shoot underneath the train. Then I lay down the track, and you'll notice that the train runs on these outer rails of two separate tracks, and that's so that there's a gap between the rails for the camera to peer through. And then to hide the fact that there are two tracks, I lay ballast down in all the gaps so that the only visible blue parts are the sections that the wheels actually run on. And now we can peer through the tracks. And then for the sky backdrop, I make sure to tilt it forward as much as possible, and that's so that when the camera looks upwards, you don't see my ceiling or my messy desk, you see the sky. That's the easy part. Now to actually film it. I film my videos with my phone camera, which means I can get down pretty low for filming. If you normally film with like a camcorder or something, it's going to be really difficult. You might need to raise it up higher. Or honestly, you can just use your camera, your phone I mean, because phone cameras are really great nowadays, and just for this one shot, I'm sure nobody would be able to tell if you're using a different camera. So I zoom the camera in a bit, and then the aim is to tilt the camera upwards so that the train travels over the camera, ideally without showing the end of the tracks. Kind of transitioning from just above the tracks and then looking upwards to the underneath of the trains, like the actual undercarriage of the train. Initially I wanted to have a track on the other end of the camera so that I could kind of lift the train up and then put it onto the track behind, and then it could just run itself over the camera. But I found it was actually just easier to pick up the train once it's above the camera and then just drag it over myself. Obviously not pretty at all, but I found that was the easiest way to do it. It was actually particularly difficult for this shot because James was just pushing Toby, and Toby has quite low cow catcher, so he'd get caught on stuff a lot, and so I ended up actually starting him on the straight part. Normally the train would, come around the bend, but Toby would often get stuck. So I think it actually turned out better when I did it with Percy, but I digress. You just got to be patient when you do this. It'll go wrong a bunch of times. You just got to keep trying, and then eventually you'll get one that you like. Yeah, so you just got to be patient. I find that it often requires a bit of editing to look good. I tend to speed up the footage a bit in post, and I might even cut out a few frames if the train gets stuck when it's travelling over the camera, which happened here with James. He kind of got caught before I picked him up and carried him over, so I just cut out those few frames, and when the footage is sped up it's kind of hard to tell that there's a jump cut, so that's why I speed the footage up a bit. But that's pretty much how I do it. That's all there is to it. It's not pretty, but if you're patient and you get a shot that looks decent, then you can, speed it up and fix it. And I think in the end, it's just an interesting visual. I think it's good for those scenes where maybe there's not a lot of dialogue, or like in Percy Takes the Plunge, he's just kind of talking to himself. So where there's not a lot actually happening, it's good to kind of have that interesting visual to kind of keep the story going, keep it interesting. So hopefully this was helpful. And yeah, give it a crack. It's a fun shot to try, super interesting, so yeah, give it a shot.